Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. David had only given a piece of pork to the widow and her daughter. Was it necessary for you to lose your temper over that? Lisa just lost her husband and is raising her child alone. She can only make a living by doing some sewing. Look at how thin that child has become. Don't you feel any pity? Before Jack left, I promised him I'd take care of Lisa and her daughter. Do you want to push me into a situation where I am seen as untrustworthy and dishonorable? David's voice echoed in my ears as I clutched my chest, feeling a sharp pain tighten in my heart. Images from my past life flashed vividly before me. My son and in-laws pressuring me to sign the divorce papers. Mom, you're not good enough for Dad. He deserves someone better in love. The one who isn't loved is the third party. You've spent your whole life serving us. It's us, the elders, who owe you, not Dad. If you feel resentment, take it out on us. You've already ruined half of Dad's life. Don't ruin the rest of it. I hadn't done anything wrong, but all their accusations were directed at me. They blamed me for not being pretty, for not being educated, for being manipulative, as if I had intentionally been good to my in-laws because I saw potential in David. In the end, my son grabbed my hand and forced my fingerprint onto the divorce papers. My whole body shook with anger as my heart throbbed painfully. I never thought the son I had raised with so much effort would treat me like this. I took several deep breaths, my eyes red and filled with unshed tears. When I finally looked up, David was in front of me, trying to persuade me with what seemed like heartfelt sincerity. Even if 20 more years were added to his age, his upright posture wouldn't have changed. Compared to his polished demeanor and Lisa's lingering grace, I, a woman who had spent my life doing hard, dirty work, indeed looked like a fool. Don't look at me like that. I've done nothing wrong, he said, his tone self-righteous as he averted his gaze. His expression was identical to the one he wore in my past life, when he forced me to divorce him. I didn't bother to respond. Let them think what they wanted. That piece of pork he gave away was something I had spent a whole day and night waiting in line to buy, meant to nourish our son and his grandparents. I turned and walked out of the house. My in-laws called after me, urging me to come back, and my son cried, "Mom," as he ran after me. Even when he stumbled and fell, scraping his chin and crying loudly, I didn't stop. I ran all the way to the factory and arrived just before it closed. I found the supervisor. "Are you sure you want to join the Western Development Program?" the supervisor asked, his face filled with disbelief. "Yes, I'm sure," I said firmly. The supervisor frowned. "Does your husband David know about this?" "He doesn't need to know. I make my own decisions," I replied. The supervisor was taken aback. "But your son is only 4 or 5 years old. Are you really willing to leave him behind?" I nodded. This isn't about being willing or unwilling. "I just want to contribute to my country," the supervisor said. "You've always said that without the country, there's no home. But going to the Northwest means you might not return for a long time. Are you sure David will let you go?" I smiled faintly. "Don't worry, no one can stop me from dedicating myself to building my country." In the end, the supervisor approved my transfer request. When I returned home, the house was lively. From the doorway, I saw Lisa sitting on a bench with her daughter, chatting and laughing with David. My father-in-law was still lying in bed, while my mother-in-law sat beside him, occasionally joining their conversation. My son was even giving Lisa's daughter his precious white rabbit candy. It was a harmonious, loving scene, a perfect picture of 3 generations living in harmony. As soon as I entered, the warm atmosphere instantly turned cold. Lisa stood up, her face full of gentle concern, and handed me the piece of pork from the table. "Sis, this is the meat David brought over this morning. I thought it would be wasted since I don't know how to cook, so I brought it back to you. There are also some eggs and chives. Use them to make something nutritious for the kids and the elders." I didn't take the pork, leaving her hand awkwardly suspended in midair. She hesitated, then added, "Sis, David really just feels sorry for us, a widow and an orphan." David looked at me intently. "There's nothing between us. You have to believe me, really," Lisa pleaded softly, her eyes filled with sincerity. I couldn't be bothered to lift my eyelids. Without saying a word, I walked straight into the inner room. David frowned slightly, then called out, "Go ahead and make dinner. Lisa and her daughter can stay and eat with us. Cook a bit more rice." Without any emotion, I responded, "I've already eaten, and I'm not hungry. If anyone wants to eat, they can cook for themselves." The whole room fell silent. Everyone froze in disbelief, especially David, whose usually calm expression couldn't hide his surprise. "You've eaten, but Mom, Dad, and the rest of us haven't. How can you be so irresponsible?" David's tone was accusatory, his words laced with frustration. "In my past life, I had been too responsible. That's why your whole family took advantage of me." Meeting his eyes, I let out a light laugh. "That's your mom and dad, David. You are also their son. I've been in this family for over 5 years, cooking 3 meals a day without fail. Why should I keep exhausting myself to serve all of you while you sit around waiting for hot meals to appear? Are your hands and feet broken? Or are you as lazy as your father?" David stood up, his tall frame no longer carrying the luster I once saw in him. "Lisa, are you cooking or not?" "Not," I said flatly, then turned and walked into the inner room. I'd had a long day and didn't want to do anything else. I needed rest to regain my energy, and to prepare for my move to the West in a month. A move where I would devote myself fully to building the country. My energy and intellect would not be wasted. The pork I had queued an entire day and night to buy ultimately turned into overly salty scraps in Lisa's hands. Even so, it was still pork, edible enough to mix with rice and make a meal out of it. From that point on, I completely stopped cooking. My in-laws scolded me, and my son complained incessantly, but I acted as though I didn't hear them. I made it clear to my in-laws, "I'm not the servant of this household. If you want to eat, cook for yourselves or go out and buy food. Just don't bother me." Recently, David had been coming home on time, trying to reason with me to avoid arguments. With him, I took the initiative to apply for overtime at work. This conveniently created an opportunity for Lisa to step in. She began bringing groceries to our home, cooking meals, and taking care of our child, all to impress David. She even went out of her way to serve my in-laws with meticulous care, leaving them completely comfortable and satisfied. David noticed her efforts and grew fond of her. Meanwhile, I tried to come home as late as possible, giving this pair of star-crossed lovers ample time to cultivate their feelings. Let my son experience a stepmother's love. Let my in-laws enjoy the happiness of being cared for by a beautiful daughter-in-law. If Lisa truly wanted to give so much of herself, I was more than happy to take a break. But the truth was, she wasn't cut out for such tasks. Coming from a pampered background, she couldn't carry heavy loads or handle hard work. She nearly set the kitchen on fire while cooking, and her hands swelled like balloons from an allergic reaction after washing clothes. The household chores piled up every day, and everyone's eyes turned to me, expecting me to step in and handle everything. Their remarks carried thinly veiled accusations. "Isn't it a daughter-in-law's job to take care of these things? You're being unfilial. David works so hard every day. How can you be so inconsiderate? Your son is so young, and yet you, his mother, won't even feed him properly." I looked at my son, who was crying loudly in my mother-in-law's arms, his little face red and tear-streaked, but I felt nothing, not even a ripple of emotion. Let him cry, he'd stop when he got tired. Let him make a fuss, he'd quiet down eventually. My in-laws weren't my parents, and as for my son, I was prepared to let him go too. I continued to go to work as usual, working overtime until late at night before coming home to sleep. Over time, my indifference forced David to take responsibility for managing the household himself. His soft-heartedness made him incapable of truly ignoring the situation. One evening, I came home to find a plate of ribs and a small serving of greens on the table. David handed me a steaming bowl of rice, gesturing for me to sit down and eat. I glanced toward the inner room. David understood immediately and said, "They're all asleep. Your son kept calling for you." I had to tell him 2 hours of stories just to calm him down. I didn't want to deal with him anymore, and turned to head to the bathroom to wash up before bed, but David blocked my way. I asked the supervisor. "The cafeteria didn't provide dinner tonight. I know you're angry with me, but there's no need to take it out on your own body." His words hit home. Yes, Why was I punishing my own body for David's sake? My stomach was burning from skipping dinner. I walked over to the table, sat down, and picked up a rib. As soon as I took a bite, David let out a long sigh. Lisa, I've made you suffer these past few years. It's my fault. I've put you through so much, David said, reflecting on himself. It seemed he was starting to understand how exhausting it was to take care of an entire family. I've been thinking about things a lot lately, he continued. You've been juggling work and managing the household. It's too much for one person, so I wanted to discuss something with you. Why don't you quit your job? Here it comes. I knew this meal wouldn't be as simple as it looked. Tu's about to start elementary school, and he'll need help with his homework. Mom and Dad's health is also getting worse by the day. If you stop working and focus on taking care of the family, it'll be easier for you. In my past life, he had said the same thing, and what happened? As soon as I resigned, he gave my job to Lisa. The two of them spent their days together, inseparable. Then, when the Western Development Program came up, they used it as an excuse to run away to the frontier together. He built a career out there, and she stayed by his side, playing the role of the loving companion. Not a single penny was sent back home. And without a job, I was left to support the entire household by doing laundry for others. I scrubbed clothes from summer to winter, and then from winter back to summer again. My hands were covered in chilblains and calluses. I still vividly remember the day David and Lisa returned from the frontier. I was covered in grime, wearing patched-up clothes, while Lisa looked radiant, dressed in the most fashionable coat, her face glowing and youthful. I sneered coldly at David and said, "But your parents would much rather have their son by their side. Our salaries are about the same. Does it really matter who earns the money? Why don't you quit your job and I'll take care of the family?" David's face darkened instantly. "I'm a man. How can I let a woman support the household?" I laughed even louder. "Exactly, you're a man. You shouldn't need a woman to support the family. But where has your salary gone all these years? Did it ever benefit this household?" His guilty expression was all the answer I needed. "I've been saving it. I'll use it when the time comes," he mumbled. I put down my chopsticks, went into the room, and brought out the metal box where we kept our savings. I opened it, pulled out his bank book, and threw it in front of him. "You withdraw your salary every month. What have you been doing with it? Care to explain, or perhaps you can show us where you've saved it?" David said nothing. I answered for him. "You've been giving. I gave it all to Lisa and her daughter, haven't you? That's why they can eat meat at every meal, and wear new clothes every day. Meanwhile, your wife has been wearing shoes with holes in them for 2 years because she can't afford a new pair. Your son has to beg for milk powder. Your dad can't even dream of getting a wheelchair. And taking your mom to the hospital for her eye problems is completely out of the question. Your so-called filial piety is nothing but empty words. Words you use to make me fulfill your duties for you." David's frown deepened, but he still tried to justify himself. "Lisa lost her husband. They have no source of income. Am I supposed to just stand by and watch them starve to death?" I looked at him coldly. "Then go ahead. Keep giving all your money to her and her daughter. Let them live well. I don't care. But since you're already giving all your money to Lisa, what will this family eat after I quit my job? Grass or maybe mud?" David held his breath, his face flushed red with frustration, unable to come up with a response. After a long pause, he looked at me and asked, "What's gotten into you lately? Before, no matter what I said or did, you would always agree without question. But now you're argumentative, defiant. You're not the obedient person you used to be." Yes, I used to be submissive, clinging to him because I loved him. I did everything he asked, hoping he would remember my kindness, that he would return my love someday. But now I've seen the truth. The harder you chase someone, the less they value you. Without another word, I pulled out the divorce papers I had prepared in advance. "Sign them, let's get a divorce. That way you can pursue the person you truly love." David's expression shifted as he read the bold black words on the document. He suddenly stood up, slamming his hand onto the table. The plates, bowls, and utensils rattled loudly against the surface. "Stop this nonsense." I looked at him calmly. "You and I both know this isn't nonsense. Your heart hasn't been with me for a long time. I've never received your love. You like Lisa, you want to give her a home. I'm making it easy for you. David slammed his hand against the table again, his voice rising. How many times do I have to explain? It's just camaraderie from our shared past. I only sympathize with Lisa and her daughter. There's nothing between us. Your idea of nothing. Does that mean you haven't slept together, haven't kissed, hugged, or held hands? Save your explanations. I'm done listening. I opened the front door and motioned for him to follow me. I led him to a spot just beneath the window of our neighbor, Mrs. Jang. She had a television, and neighbors often gathered there to watch shows and chat. It didn't take long before the neighborhood gossip turned to Lisa. Did you see Lisa today? She's wearing a new outfit again. That pastel color is just stunning. Yeah, she even made a point of mentioning that the fabric is real high-quality stuff, custom-made in town. It's funny, isn't it? Her husband's dead, but she's living better now than when he was alive. Poor Lisa's sister-in-law. What bad luck she has being married to such a spineless man. David is just awful. You're right about that. Lisa's sister-in-law, Jane, is hardworking and capable at the factory and at home. But David, that two-faced scoundrel, is sneaking around with Lisa. He looks decent, but he's trash. I've told Jane before, just divorce him already. She's still young and good-looking, and she earns a decent income. Plenty of good men are eyeing her. Even my relatives ask about her every year during the holidays. They're dying to know if she's divorced yet, so they can make their move. And Lisa, that scheming woman, hasn't changed a bit. She was chasing men when her husband was alive, and now that he's gone, she's even bolder about it. And David, that idiot, can't see what he's giving up. He treats Lisa like a treasure while ignoring Jane completely. I've noticed Jane's been working overtime at the factory lately. She stopped cooking and doing the laundry at home. Looks like she's planning to leave him. We should talk to her, encourage her to take the leap. It's not like we live in feudal times anymore. Women can thrive on their own after a divorce. Good idea. And while we're at it, we can introduce her to some of our relatives. Let David regret everything. David's face turned ashen as he listened to the chatter. I crossed my arms and looked at him, letting the weight of the gossip settle in the silence. Still think I'm making a fuss? He might look good on the outside, but David's really not someone worth showing off. And those two half-dead parents of his? Any decent girl would steer clear of a family like that. Just wait, if David does marry Lisa, their life together will be a disaster. They'll probably end up divorcing. Lisa is the kind of woman who ruins everything, no matter who she's with. It always ends badly. You know, her late husband worked himself to death trying to earn more money for her. He went days without sleep, pushing himself to the limit. That's why when he was moving machinery, he lost focus for just a second and ended up caught in it, dying on the spot. The neighbors kept talking and talking. There was so much gossip that I started feeling drowsy thinking about work the next day. I decided I'd had enough and stood up to head home. David noticed me leaving and quickly followed. His face was as dark as a storm cloud. When we got back, I washed up briefly, climbed into bed, and fell asleep almost immediately. David sat on the edge of the bed looking at me, opening his mouth as if to say something, but when he saw I wasn't paying him any attention, he gave up. The next morning, we both got ready for work. At the entrance, we ran into Lisa. She tried to greet me, but I ignored her. Then she called out warmly, "Good morning, David." Surprisingly, David just glanced at her indifferently and kept walking. As we left the apartment complex, I caught a glimpse of Lisa's hurt expression. As we walked side by side, David suddenly reached out and pulled me. Gently, he draped his scarf over my neck. I was stunned, and then he handed me 2 boiled eggs. "I boiled these before you got up. From now on, I'll make them for you every day." I didn't take them. "There's no need for you to do this." He took a deep breath and said earnestly, "I've been wrong before. I made you suffer. From now on, I'll change. Let's live a good life together." Then he pulled something else out of his pocket and shoved it into my arms along with the eggs. "Here, this is my salary for the month. From now on, I'll bring every penny home." Without waiting for my response, he turned and walked briskly toward his workplace. Watching his upright figure disappear into the distance, I felt conflicted. You might have pulled some tricks to make David distance himself from me, but you can't change the fact that I'm the one in his heart. I turned to the voice and saw Lisa staring at the money and eggs in my arms, her face twisted with resentment. For years, David has given me all his eggs and his salary. You're only getting this once. We still have a long way to go. She glared at me challengingly. I smirked and, taking advantage of the neighbors gathering in the courtyard, raised my voice. Oh, so my husband brings you eggs every day and all his salary every month? No wonder he hasn't brought a single penny home. These eggs and this money he said to give them to you. Here, take them, eat well and live well. That's the only way he'll feel at ease. The surrounding neighbors stopped to look. Lisa's face turned beet red, and the arrogance she'd shown earlier vanished in an instant. You're spouting nonsense. David and I are completely innocent. Feigning innocence, I replied. Oh really? Then where do you get money for a new outfit every 3 to 5 days if it's not from my husband? Is it from some other man? Lisa's face contorted with frustration, her voice rising in protest. Jane, stop accusing me of ridiculous things. I shook my head and clicked my tongue a few times. Poor David, he keeps thinking about you, worrying about you, even while you're busy juggling other men in your life. What a devoted guy. I raised my voice in the direction of Mrs. Jang and the other women. Ladies, Lisa claims my husband has nothing to do with her, but tell me, where does she get the money for her lavish lifestyle? Which man is secretly funding her? Go back and question your husbands carefully. Mrs. Jang and the others immediately frowned, their gazes toward Lisa growing more disdainful. Finally, Mrs. Jang couldn't hold back and strode over to Lisa, sneering harshly. Shameless woman, daring to act but too scared to admit it. Lisa tried to defend herself. Don't listen to Jane's nonsense. You all know what kind of person I am. Mrs. Jang scoffed coldly. Oh, we know exactly what kind of person you are. When your husband had just passed, you sent my man a handkerchief. Don't think I don't know what you were up to. Only an idiot like David falls for your tricks. Lisa's eyes brimmed with tears, threatening to spill, but Mrs. Jang and the others didn't hold back. You think you can bully Jane because she's kind? Let me warn you. Don't try your tricks on my man, or else I'll deal with you myself, knife in hand. Lisa trembled visibly, her earlier bravado completely shattered. Mrs. Jang tugged my arm, pulling me away. Jane, this place stinks. Let's go. I need to talk to you anyway. Let her stay here and stew in her own mess. I let Mrs. Jang lead me toward the factory, leaving Lisa alone, humiliated and unsupported. That evening, as usual, I came home late. There were dishes set out on the table, and David was sitting nearby, his expression gloomy. I could tell he had already heard about the events earlier in the day, the way Mrs. Jang and I had confronted Lisa, but he didn't bring it up, instead making small talk about trivial things. After dinner, David cleaned up the table and did the dishes. I enjoyed the rare break, washed up, and went to bed. David sat on the edge of the bed, seeming like he wanted to say something, but he hesitated and eventually lay down beside me in silence. Whatever was on his mind, he kept it to himself. For the next 2 weeks or so, life was unusually peaceful. Even when Lisa came by to see David with some excuse, he rejected her coldly, his expression indifferent. My mother-in-law, whose eyesight wasn't the best, still seemed to pick up on the shift. One day she pulled me aside and said, Jane, David still cares about you the most. You shouldn't stay angry at him. Come home earlier and help him with the household chores. As long as you two work together, things will improve. I gave her a non-committal response, but deep down, I knew this peace wouldn't last. Someone as determined as Lisa wouldn't give up on someone like David so easily. A couple more months passed, and the list of employees selected for the Western Development Project was posted. My name was on it. That evening, when David found out, his face darkened, and he didn't say a word throughout dinner. Later, he finally spoke, his voice tight with frustration. If you go to the West, are you just abandoning me and this family? I replied calmly. Your unit probably has slots for the Western Development Project as well. You should apply. We can bring our child and your parents with us. The unit over there provides housing and meals. The houses are twice the size of what we have here. If we go together, life will be better than it is here. David clenched his teeth, struggling with his response. I can't go. Why not? I pressed. He opened his mouth to answer but then stopped, the words seemingly stuck in his throat. I let out a soft laugh. You don't want to leave Lisa and her daughter behind, do you? Without you, they might not even survive. Anger flashed across his face as he finally snapped, spilling everything in one breath. There's nothing between Lisa and me. I've already given my salary to you, and I haven't had any contact with her for weeks. Why can't you just let it go? I pointed to the injury on David's arm. That's a burn from soldering, isn't it? He quickly rolled down his sleeve. No, it's not. When Mrs. Jiang and the others visited the base during the military parade, they saw you soldering. They went out of their way to ask about it, and then told me soldering is private work. It's grueling, but it pays well. You can earn more in a month from that than you get from your military salary. And since that money never came to me, I assume it's been going to support Lisa and her daughter, right? David's face was full of guilt. You can't just leave them with no way to live. I laughed softly. Then let's divorce. That way, you can openly take care of them. No need to sneak out in the middle of the night to knock on her door after I've fallen asleep. His face darkened. You've been pretending to sleep all this time? I shook my head. You probably won't believe this, but Lisa herself told me. Impossible, he retorted, though his voice lacked conviction. I didn't argue. Instead, I grabbed his sleeve. Did Lisa patch this for you? He immediately yanked his arm away. No, she didn't. I didn't have the energy to continue arguing with a man who was clearly lying, so I turned and went back to my room to rest. Later, I overheard my in-laws calling David into their room for a conversation. Our house was small, and their words reached my ears clearly. For once, they were reprimanding him. We didn't say anything before because life was still relatively stable, but now Jane has made her stance crystal clear. You need to make a choice. You can't have it all, given our family situation. If you truly want to be with Lisa, your parents likely won't survive much longer. She's not someone you can build a life with, son. Wake up already. Haven't you suffered enough these past few months? You're barely alive. Your body is covered in injuries. Is it worth it for a woman like her? Live your life with Jane and stop chasing things that aren't meant to be. Despite their age, my in-laws were still sharp. After a night of persuasion, David finally agreed to go to the Northwest with me. But could he actually go? The moment David submitted his application to join the Western Development Program, Lisa came looking for me. Her eyes were filled with rage as she glared at me. I've already endured so much. Why are you forcing me to die? I couldn't help but find her words amusing. How exactly am I forcing you to die? Without David's support, my daughter and I won't even have food to eat. Jane, you're so heartless. I stared at her coldly. Then why don't you bring your child and follow us to the Northwest? You can continue being the other woman. She screamed, her voice cracking. Go to the Northwest? How can I? I don't have the right documents or approval. They'll send me right back. Well, that's your problem for being so useless, I replied with a smirk. But I'll give you a suggestion. David has a soft heart, and you're good at manipulating him. Fake an illness or come up with some excuse to make him stay. Her brows furrowed as she hesitated. Would you really let him stay behind? I laughed. I'd be thrilled if he divorced me. Her eyes glinted with cunning as she began to plot. I knew she'd find a way to keep David from leaving. Meanwhile, I focused on preparing for my move to the Northwest. The supervisor had reminded me to stop working overtime and take time to pack, visit with family and friends, and tie up loose ends. After all, who knew when I'd see them again? I went door to door, sharing old memories and dreams for the future. David followed me everywhere, joining in the conversations. For a moment, it felt like a farewell tour of sorts. But then news broke that Lisa had attempted suicide. Despite his usual composure, David panicked. He immediately abandoned me and ran to her house. By the time I arrived at the hospital, Lisa was alive but weak, cradled in David's arms. Tears streamed down Lisa's face as she clung weakly to David, her voice trembling. David, please don't leave me. I'll be good. I'll listen. I won't interfere with your family. Just don't go, okay? I'm begging you, don't leave. Her pleas were so pitiful that even as a bystander, My heart softened for a moment. How could David, the man directly involved in this scene, resist? Naturally, we all heard his response. I'm not going. I won't leave. Stay strong. We're almost at the hospital. Don't worry, I'll take care of you and your daughter. The words spilled from his mouth like a vow, and everyone in the apartment complex heard it. The furrowed brows and exchanged glances said it all. When the ambulance arrived, David accompanied Lisa to the hospital. I stood with the other women, all of them waiting for my reaction. Mrs. Zhang hesitated, wanting to console me, but before she could speak, I broke the silence. Don't worry, ladies, I'm not upset. Not in the least. In fact, I hope you'll all be my witnesses. David is the one who betrayed me first, so when I push for divorce, I'll need your support. Mrs. Zhang immediately chimed in. Don't worry, Jane. A man like that will regret it. Divorce him. Who knows, he might end up being the one who can't live without you. The others nodded in agreement, their support warming my heart. David stayed at the hospital with Lisa for an entire week. During that time, he withdrew his application for the Western Development Project. When he returned, he didn't care about the judgmental stares from the neighbors. He carried Lisa back to our home, looking after her meticulously, cooking, cleaning, and tending to her every need. Yet even after all that, he refused to file for divorce. Even if you don't go to the Northwest, we're not getting divorced. You just have to trust me. There's nothing between Lisa and me, I swear. I'll never do anything to betray you. The irony of his promise was laughable. He'd already done so much to betray me, and yet he had the audacity to make such a declaration. Did he really believe that as long as he didn't sleep with Lisa, it didn't count as betrayal? Mrs. Zhang couldn't stand to see me being dragged down by such an irresponsible man. She rallied the other women and, together, they began confronting Lisa daily. The insults they hurled at her were mild compared to their rage. They had their way, they'd throw her into a pig cage. Lisa, humiliated by their attacks, naturally turned to David for comfort. Unable to resist her tears, David tried to mediate, but the situation only worsened. Eventually, David was forced to file for divorce. The higher-ups, aware of the situation, approved the divorce quickly. On the day the divorce certificate was issued, David looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. Did it really have to come to this? He sounded reluctant, almost regretful. I felt nothing but relief. You're the one who brought it to this point. I simply followed through with that. I picked up my luggage and turned to leave. What about TAA? Don't you care about him at all? He asked, his voice almost pleading. I smiled and replied. Everyone has their own path to walk from the moment they're born. TAA has his. Since you chose to stay for your parents, you can look after TAA as well. There's nothing more to think about. He grabbed my arm. His eyes filled with unspoken words, but I had no desire to hear them. Have some dignity, David. You've already betrayed me. Don't betray her too. Let me go. Jane, I can't let you go. But I've already let you go. With that, I boarded the train to the Northwest. David chased after me, but I didn't spare him a single glance. All I wanted was for the train to go faster, to take me far, far away. And so began my 30 years of building a new life in the Northwest. I married my husband, a kind and wonderful man who treats me exceptionally well. Due to our busy work schedules, we never had children, but neither of us felt strongly about having them. Instead, we've enjoyed the simplicity of our life together. Over the years, I advanced from a factory worker to a factory director. With time and changing circumstances, I was later transferred back to my hometown, taking up a significant position managing the province's mineral resource development. My husband, ever supportive, moved with me. Life was calm, like a still river, until one day during an inspection in the countryside, I encountered David. He stood among a group of coal miners, his skin darkened from years of labor, his hair completely white, and one arm missing. His once tall and upright figure had become hunched and frail. His head was bowed, and his eyes, devoid of light, reflected a man worn down by time and hardship. I wasn't surprised to see him like this. Over the years, I had stayed in touch with Mrs. Zhang, who had kept me updated on his life. I knew that the year after I left, David married Lisa. The following year, Due to Lisa's negligence, David's parents died of carbon monoxide poisoning. Tragically, their son Taa also perished in the same incident. With no children or elders to care for, David and Lisa lived a few good years together, but when the military underwent reform, David was forced to transition to a civilian job at a small factory. By coincidence, he was assigned to the same position. I had once held managing machinery. However, the factory's profitability declined year by year, and his salary dwindled. Lisa, with her extravagant habits, soon grew dissatisfied with David's reduced income. In an effort to satisfy her vanity, David took on dangerous black market work to earn extra money. Lisa constantly compared him to other men, pointing out how they had bought cars or refrigerators. Soft-hearted and prideful, David worked tirelessly to provide for her. Over the years, Lisa maintained her youthful beauty, but David's appearance became utterly unrecognizable. His health deteriorated from the endless labor, and one day, while operating machinery, his arm was caught in the gears, leaving him permanently disabled. When he returned from the hospital, there was no trace of the handsome man he once was. Lisa began to despise him. Unable to endure loneliness, she started an affair with the local tailor. The scandal came to light in David's own home. Trembling with rage, he still refrained from confronting her outright. Even if they divorced, he wanted to end things with dignity. But then, while hiding in a cupboard to avoid a confrontation, he overheard Lisa and her lover talking. They admitted that Lisa had intentionally orchestrated the carbon monoxide poisoning that killed David's parents and son. Unable to contain himself, David grabbed a knife from the kitchen and killed Lisa in a fit of rage. Due to his past military service and the extenuating circumstances, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison. After his release, no one was willing to hire him. Out of desperation, he ended up working at a coal mine, where he remained for decades. As for Lisa's child, after David was imprisoned, the child ran off with a man, and no one knows their current whereabouts. As the inspection at the rural coal mine concluded and I prepared to leave, David stood by the side of my car, his eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and longing, fixated on me. I walked over and greeted him warmly. "It's been a long time." He swallowed hard, his eyes brimming with tears. "Yes, it's been a long time." David and I locked eyes, neither of us able to say a word. The silence stretched until I got into the car. As we pulled away, I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw David collapse to the ground, wailing in despair. My husband, sitting beside me, asked, "What happened to that disabled man?" I replied calmly, "Maybe life has been too hard on him." He nodded thoughtfully. Yes, at his age, still working in the coal mines, it must be grueling. Coal miners' wages should probably be raised to reflect their effort. Back in the provincial capital, I compiled a report detailing the working conditions of coal miners and submitted it to the higher authorities. Not long after, news came back that wages for coal miners were being increased. But along with that good news came another report. David had taken his own life at the mine. My husband expressed regret. It looked like life was just about to improve for him. How could he not hold on? Sighed softly. Perhaps not everyone is meant to benefit from the blessings of a new era.